Hey there, everybody. Thank you so very much once again for chilling out, hanging out, being with us on TLC Presents Todd-versations. We are pumped that you're here. We're excited about our guest today. We're going to have a great conversation about some cool stuff. Give it up, everybody, for my friend sitting over here, VP of Produce and Floral Operations at Sprouts, Andrew McGregor. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us a little bit and chit-chat about the retail world.
Same here.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. One of the areas that I think is not talked about a lot. You look at retail and you're talking about trends, you're talking about new items, all this other stuff. But one of the areas that I'm really kind of think is cool and want to uplift a little bit is the area around merchandising. And I think it's an area that a lot of people, in the business probably recognize it in some ways, but a lot of people don't recognize how big of a role merchandising plays all throughout the grocery store. Right, whether it's end caps, ad placement, all that other stuff. And so that's something I really wanted to dive into today. And I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. And of course, one of the reasons that I think it's kind of cool to get you involved, not only are you got a big role doing a whole lot of other stuff at Sprouts, let alone being responsible for merchandising and all the other things you're responsible for, but you've been merchandising a long time. It's been a big part of your career. Can you share really quick, just get going a little bit of your background and where you are and what you're doing and how you got to wasting time with me, hanging out on a Zoom call, talking.
Yeah,
talking
that's been
BS?
a long time of wasting time with you.
That's
Yeah,
hurtful. I mean, that cuts me. No, that does cut me a touch to the core. I just want you to know.
well, we have known each other a long time. So I started back in produce in 1993. It was like a year after I graduated from college. I thought I was going to do something else in the medical sciences and realized that was not up my alley. So I got a part-time job at Wild Oats Markets from a friend that worked there. Got me into warehousing, got me selecting pallets and stuff. I think at the time they had like 7 or 9 stores.
Right.
Warehouse work was probably above more work than I was willing to do at that age. I was kind of a wimp. So moved over to the store. Thought that'd be easier, and I guess I was wrong there. So I moved up, worked my way up Wild Oats all the way up to eventually director of merchandising. I think they had 110 or 111 stores. Right up until about the time they got the transition, about a year before they merged with Whole Foods. So at that moment, I don't know, coincidentally, I had transitioned over to running the Henry's stores in California. So I relocated out there in 2006. Ran that division for 5 years while Whole Foods took over Wild Oats, and then eventually we got merged with. It didn't escape me. We got merged with Sprouts in 2011, and I've been there ever since. I relocated to Phoenix about 2 years after being with them and learning that business and help putting those brands together. We acquired the Sunflower Market, so you had those 3 kind of independent, very similar market brands coming together.
Sure.
So we spent a lot of time getting that organization, getting all the organization and processes in place and getting consistency to be able to go public. And then since, I don't know, 2013 or 14, it's just been a wild ride of overseeing some pretty amazing growth and a ton of work over the last number of years. So yeah, so today overseeing merchandising, sales, and sourcing for Sprouts produce and floral.
Wow. I mean, that's a big role. And which is the reason why I reached out and wanted to talk with you specifically about merchandise, because, not only have you been doing a long time, you're award winning, you've been merchandiser of the year, you've got some accolades, you've been out there, you've set the bar. I mean, you look at the Sprout stores today, that farmer market feel, the way you walk in, the way it's inviting, the way stuff is grabbable, and the stuff is in front of you. It's you can engage with it. You guys have changed the way a lot of retailers have done stuff. I mean, the biggest form was, what's the biggest compliment, having somebody copying what you're doing. Right. So, I mean, and you see that around the country, people adopting that that farmer's market feel. So again, I appreciate you coming out and sharing with us a little bit and giving some tips to the trade and don't overshare. We don't want you to overshare, but you can overshare if you want. And I can always add stories too. I can throw stuff on top of it if you want. It's not a big deal to me. No, we'll save those. We'll save those. We'll save that for the blooper reel. Anyway, so let's get into it a little bit. So what is the exact role of a merchandiser?
Well, I would, it's obviously different with different organizations. And I
Sure.
grew up, part of a small natural foods. I've been doing that for, the entirety of my career. So I'm sure it's potentially unique, but for us and my history, the biggest role has always been, the training, the mentoring, the knowledge sharing. It's that point of contact, because typically what happens in a lot of retail is you've got, and especially today, that produce team and produce manager, their knowledge of produce is what they see at the back of a truck when it pulls up delivering their product, and that's the extent of their knowledge. And it is crazy. And that was mine back at Wild Oats when I started. I had no clue. But when you get folded in to almost the magic of what's happening behind the scenes of the products and the farm, and then you start getting visibility to the industry and the importance and power of that. Today, that merchandiser has got to carry that torch, in my opinion. They've got to carry that down to the store and find ways to get those team members share a little bit of that light that keeps that fire burning.
Right.
I think that's a core job, because if you don't do that, if that merchandiser doesn't have a way to kind of almost preach in a way, to get these people committed to feeling like there's purpose and there's importance to what they're doing, that light can burn out, and then everything else becomes semi-meaningless. The other things they're doing is, of course, we count on them for, managing all those factors that they have to kind of know about. What are your sales targets? What are your margin? What is the shrink? What is the turns? All the basic stuff. We got to, there's some fundamentals of the business that have to come together. And typically that merchandiser is the kind of the funnel where all of that's going to come, because we've got a lot of that's coming from different areas of the business, and really the one point of contact before it hits the person in the store that cares the most about produce. There's one point of contact that merchandiser has got to pull all that together, communicate that well, and make sure that message is delivered about here's why this is cool, and here's what we got to do to get the job done. So so that's fundamentally, I think, what they are. The other piece is we would love to rely on them to take all of this, all of those kind of tactical responsibilities, and put those together and find a way to tell a story about that at store level, right? Because ultimately the produce manager has to understand this story and their role in this story, and then they got to bring it to life, right? Because that's for all the produce folks out there, probably from every level, we know that ultimately the last point of contact with our products is that produce team. And if that's not done well and done right, everything else upstream was a waste of time.
Right.
So it's a big deal. And I think if we've always tried to treat it as a big a deal as I think it is.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And I got to tell you, you use the word mentor, purpose, all in that, which is like, okay, now you got me hooked. You're using all my buzzwords. You're using the words to get me fired up, right? So, and I agree 100% with what you're saying about creating that picture, right? And merchandisers, in a lot of ways, are really unsung heroes of the retail sector, right? Because you are, you got the buy side, and they're represented by what goes on the shelf, right? And so it's very easy to judge. You have a really crappy strawberry, you have a really good strawberry, whatever. It's pretty easy to see that. But the artistry, the tapestry that you've created to funnel people, to get people to think, to inspire them to purchase is, they're painting that picture for the consumer. So share with me a little bit, or just give me some examples maybe of like, how do you communicate with consumers, like through merchandising? Obviously sign packages, et cetera, but I mean, and that's really low hanging fruit, right? I mean, but oh, hey, look, low hanging fruit. That was a produce joke. I'm on fire today. I'm on fire.
All right. Well, we'll wait for the apples to oranges comment here coming from you soon. I would say produce is a unique. I would say it's a unique. Well, we know this. It's a unique industry, but it's unique in ways that I think we have a common language with the customer. We don't have to. There's a lot of, if it's packaged grocery or other areas of retail, you've got to start from square one about understanding, communicating with the product, with the need, developing all the strategies behind that. For produce, most people know what a banana is. They know what a banana tastes like. In fact, probably produce is probably the first thing they were ever fed as a baby, right? Eat your peas and carrots or whatever, right? So you've got some commonality there, that you've got a language. And I think understanding that is core. And understanding your customers, where they're coming from in their language, because I think they do, and I think that's where each format is a little different, right? Because each customer, we all know that, is a little different. And you've got to understand these things. And people relate when they can kind of speak the same language and have a dialogue that can build from that. So I think merchandising, in some ways, we're at an advantage of we don't have to start from square one. The disadvantage is the complexity of produce is so, I can't put a bunch of labels on the back of a box for you to turn around and read. I got to share this with you in ways, and I can't put a sign that you're going to sit for 5 minutes and read at, probably knee height. So it's through merchandising, right? It's through display building. It's through the product and the tie-ins and the location. So I think that's where for us, I think it's understanding what is the point when you're communicating with the customer. So what was mentioned, that what is the story, right? What is the story of this? Is this story like, I've got a deal at a fantastic price. I just need you to buy some because I got some grower returns. We got to make this work, right? Because you want this, I want this. Let's do this. If that's my point, then the how you communicate that to a customer changes, right? That might be, I'm communicating that in an impulse, high traffic area, nice big price sign, a nice big display, right? Stuff flowing all over the place. Doesn't need to look pretty, needs to look, in fact, sometimes customers like things that look sharp. Something must be going on, right? It must be a reason everyone's over there. What am I missing? You got to create that. It also may be a moment where I'm, we want to communicate something a little more complex. We've got a meal solution or an emerging variety of apple or something else. And I got to talk to you a little bit more. So that's where I think we would use like a destination area, find a place where customers can, using those places where, you can have that kind of conversation. Hopefully it's face-to-face, which is harder and harder to do these days. Right. But I think that's the advantage of being in a 4-walled box is I've got people there. We can have those conversations if we can get them up to speed and educated. But I think understanding those basic kind of constructs of this produce language and how you use product, how you use point of sale signage, how you use location within the store, whether it's in your core of your department, outside near maybe a deli or meat department. What is the occasion you're trying to talk through? What's the seasonality? I think all those things kind of come in, which again, part of the role of merchandising, you got to understand that's a lot to grasp, right? A lot of dependencies on understanding that and being able to put that into action.
Well, it's like you're painting a picture, right? So, I mean, there's a story to be told. I mean, I think sometimes consumers think that, produce grows in the back room of your stores anyways, in a lot of ways. And so for you to be able to get past that and to get people to become engaged with their food and turn them into somebody that's going to try something they never thought of before, right? I mean, that's part of the responsibility too, I would imagine. Your stores, you talked about consistency and kind of that look, but your stores on a national scale, they pretty much are pretty recognizable from city to city and store to store. I mean, you don't really have 17 different things or appearances going on out there. And some retailers do, some have a lot of different, but you guys are pretty consistent with that feel in all of your stores, at least my experience around the country. Why is it important, you think, to have that consistency of that look?
This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Moxie Marketing, an award-winning, full-service marketing agency specializing in all aspects of the fresh food and produce industry. Let's all get Moxie. Connect with us at getmoxie.com. That's GETMOXXY.com.
When we think about, because I agree with you, a lot of our stores do look similar as far as just the general layout. There's some things that are purposeful in that, right? Some of it's a product of things that this format and this particular brand, learnings we've had. I mean, the Boney's stores have been around since the 40s and 50s. So there's 75 plus years of learning going into this that dictate some of these things that do give probably, communicate with a customer in a way that I probably, only being around for 27, 28 years, I don't get it, but I respect it. So that's part of it. But I would say, a company like Starbucks or somebody has got to have consistency because there's some of those fundamental things that you need a customer to understand when they come in, right? I can understand this is going to be comfortable. I know what to expect. I know the quality expectation. I know I can get consistency and so all those kind of things that you're going to want to go in and feel anywhere you go. I'm going to have the look and feel, because that's important, that your product is all dependent on that, or the ability to walk in. You don't Sprouts, I would say, for me anyway, in my history, I'd actually less interested in how they look the same. I'd rather them feel the same, I'd rather, that's what, if you went into a Sprouts and said, oh, you walk in and it feels fresh and feels vibrant, and engaging, and interesting, and I don't know, maybe even exciting, all those kinds of emotional responses that produce can bring from people, because it's just so fundamental to who we are and who we've been. If I could do that, that's way more important to me than everybody looking alike. So if every store started to look different, you go, into a store in Orlando, Florida, and one in Seattle, Washington, and go, am I in a Sprouts? This looks, the tables are different, the displays look a little different, but it felt the same. That energy that was authentic, and core to who the format is. I think that's what it's about personally. I think the looking the same, there is some, that's easy to say when you got 10 or less stores. When you start having hundreds of stores and 20 plus states, you got to have some fundamentals or guardrails around the basics of operation, like a Starbucks. I do have some quality, minimums that need to be met, assortment or variety things that have to be done, right? That's part of our fundamentals of business. And so we got to have some structure to that, especially with, I'm guessing, you're dealing with this in some ways, or certainly, we're all aware of the challenges with resources, labor, not only just finding people that work in the industry, but finding people that want to stay in and be committed and learn. So we've got to create some fundamentals there through our format and our fixtures and our processes that make sure that some of those basics get done, in case the people in those stores are just too young, or there's just not enough of them to get that done. So some of it's that, and I think those are considerations that have become more important for me to consider and manage against in the last 5 or 6 years than it would have been when earlier in my career.
Killer answer. I mean, it really is. It's a killer answer, and you're right. I appreciate the perspective that you brought up, because it isn't that the feel is the most important thing, right? I mean, walking into a retailer and the first thing you smell is that they have a fish department, that's just a turnoff, right? But to walk, I mean, seriously, we've done it. We've walked into grocery stores around the country, but to go in and have that, to your point, to be able to create some excitement when you walk in, to be able to walk in and get to turn shopping into an experience, as opposed to a hassle or whatever it is. It becomes something that people are like, I look forward to. I mean, that's a gift, right? To create that vibe like that. I mean, and that's, I would think, like a merchandiser's dream.
Yeah. And I mean, and with the competitive nature of e-commerce, and all the convenience options that customers seem more and more inclined to take advantage of, we're going to have to get better and better at that part of our role in this industry. Because if we don't, you get a lot of things going against us.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, e-com certainly is a game changer, right? I mean, e-com certainly making everybody stop and pause for a moment. But, to me, produce is the only place in the grocery store that you can actually touch and feel and be a part of the experience, right? I say this all the time. Like, you're not going to walk up to the meat guy and say, let me smell a ribeye, right? I just don't think that's going to happen, right? Or, how are you going to get excited about seeing a roll of paper towels? But produce is interactive, right? You're making choices. You're actually able to choose from 100 different gala apples right there, the 5 you want to take home. We don't really get that, right? It is much more personal. So I appreciate that perspective. What do you think, like a misconception? What's kind of a maybe one of the biggest misconceptions about merchandising, in your opinion?
By the way, I was thinking the last time I got excited about a roll of paper towels was probably about a year ago, when you couldn't find toilet paper, and then you had to improvise. Sorry, you might want to edit that out.
We're going to keep that one.
Well, it's honesty. I would say the misconception that we tend to get into is that I do anyway, is sometimes you mentioned all these different things that produce has, right? I mean, the complexity, especially this time of year, if you're in summer, I guess anytime, depending on the category, but particularly for those produce folks, June and July and August are, you've got more stories to tell than you could possibly ever get done. And I think we struggle, and I struggle with trying to think that more is better. So if I can get more things onto this display and tell more stories around, oh, look at all these cross merchandising ideas, because you can go and go and go, right? If we got a grilling theme, oh, we can fundamentally base this in corn, and then we can start having lots of fun, and we can start getting in portobello caps and zucchini and you name it, right? You can grill peaches, you can grill watermelon, heck, grill half a romaine. Like all of a sudden your display that felt really cool idealistically or whatever, from a conceptual standpoint, is overwhelming, right? And it's overwhelming and you lose the whole point. And it's kind of like, I think customers, just like those that have ever set a wet rack in the day, or at least work a department and know the importance of clean lines, good color breaks, all these things, because you're trying to, at least I've always seen is you're trying to have something that's pleasing to the eye, that's understandable, predictable, so that a customer can feel comfortable. And if it's too much going on, it tends to be overwhelming. And I think people tend to not like that feeling, even if the concept was cool. So I would say less is more. Frequently. And that's one of the things, again, we struggle with it, in the early days of kind of the farmer's market format, it was stack it high, watch it fly in the purest form. And as customers and expectations evolve, you have to evolve with that, and growth in organics or other things. And you've got folks that, customers that are expecting better things and different things. And so trying to merge those two without losing the point or the story is not easy, but it's good spend of time.
Oh, that's fantastic answer. Thank you for that. That's insightful, to say the least. So it is truly, you're right, because we have a tendency to, at times to go, oh, this worked, so let's do it 5 times bigger. Let's do it 5 times more. Let's add 5 more things to it. And and the original message, to your point, the original message is lost in translation now, right? The original goal, which was probably a fantastic goal, ends up being so diluted by so much other stuff that, there's value in being simple as much as, as anything else. And I think it's, when it comes to stores, when you have so many choices, to your point, so many choices, so many colors, so many things going on, if a customer feels overwhelmed, it's, in my mind, it's almost like these blinders come in and they're only going to focus on what's sitting on that list as opposed to garnering that experience.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, totally for sure. So what kind of leading into that, I guess my next question would be is kind of rank the importance when it comes to, from a merchandising standpoint, between price, location, and appearance, right? Obviously, if you have a piece of shitty fruit out there, that kind of speaks for itself, but those three all go together in your merchandising scheme. So how do you play with that when you're thinking about it?
I guess the appearance and quality are always tricky, right? Because it's not necessarily, the two aren't always linked. Something that looks good may not eat well. It may just be, farmed and bred for shelf life and appearance, right, and actually be a really disappointing experience. And I think, especially on the kind of this format, that price and quality, that value equation has always been critical you got to hit that mark really well. And that's part of the conversation with the customer, and knowing that customer and where they're expecting that relationship to land. You got to know that, and you got to be able to balance that, because you can go lots of directions. So I'm always going to lean to quality first, right? The product has to be the hero. And I think that's just fundamentally, that goes back to like that merchandiser's role of, communicating the purpose of what this is all about, and the purpose of what this means to the business, and the meaning of what this means to the customer, right? Why are they here? Why did they turn left, not right? All those kinds of things. You got to understand that. So if it's not about the product, then, that you're, in my opinion, you're disrespecting or dishonoring everything that happened, not only upstream from that, from the farm to the supply chain to the people in the back rooms of our stores to make this happen, but all the history behind it, right? This has been part of our history for hundreds, thousands of years. Right. Possibly the oldest profession, selling produce, maybe older than the other one. So I would say, so that's always going to be the first one. I would say the second one is location. because that's part of the telling the story around what you're doing, right? And I think that's as far as the point of the store, and that's one of the things we've always pushed pretty. It's always been ahead of the list of other objectives in the store, which has always been nice about this format is the respect and of produce being fundamental to who we are as a format. And that's the stuff, like I said, back to the Boney's family in the 1940s and 50s. It started there and it stayed there. So I think we accent that through what we tell the customer in placement. So, you know, you got to have good product, and then you got to put it in a place that shares with the customer. This is important to us, and we think it should be important to you. And I think so that starts there. The price thing, like I said, I think, you know, we got to have, if you're not relevant to your customer and their need to feed their family and your role in giving them healthy choices, and hoping they'll grab an apple instead of a bag of Doritos, or they build some of this muscle memory around, snack foods and healthy opportunities and the joy that you can get out of, making a meal with your family. We got to give them opportunities to do that. So price is important, but I think you got to start with product and the quality of it.
Well, yeah, and I'm a big believer that quality product is a positive cost of food, right? I mean, it really is. And to me, it should be celebrated. Guys, to your point, you talk about stuff that looks really great and, it absolutely eats terrible. It's all about the fact that it was able to get somewhere, get through the inspection at the warehouse, sit there for a couple, 2-3 days till it spins out, go on the shelf, gets to the consumer, and it's like, it sucks, right? I mean, that needs to, that just doesn't do anybody good, because to your point, we're not working to increase consumption by doing that. We're certainly not turning people on to whatever that commodity might have been. So if you're out painting the picture and, they let you down on that side of it, that picture gets a little bit out of the lines as well. So just what's the best spot, in your opinion, what's the best spot in the store for produce? I mean, because you guys are a little different. Like, you walk into your stores and you guys really embrace the front of the store with stuff. You do. Some of your stores are, you got some big displays coming in, and then you've got other stuff that's going on. Is there, in your mind or in your opinion, is there some place that, like, really you feel like that story, that painting, that easel is set up that really captures people's attention?
Yeah, this is specific to this format, right? I can't speak to others. It's that entryway display for us, because, like I said, we've got that relationship with the customer, and we have that display historically. If it didn't shift at least once a week, it was sometimes twice or 3 times a week. The complexity of overlapping promotions and events and opportunistic buys and all those things just is fundamental to the history of this format. And that was the most flexible place that we had, that required, and it captured customers expected. If there was something going on, we're going to do it there. So the entryway was the story. What we struggle with sometimes there is the attention span of the customer is mitigated, right? Because it's busy.
They're trying to get in.
They're trying to get in. They got somebody hitting them in the butt with a cart. They got somebody coming the other way with bags and getting in their way. They got, who knows what's going on. In addition to, everyone else wants in this space too. So we got a floral display. I got some demo going on in meat. So it's a little overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And that's a part where if you're not simple and easy on those impulsive things, it can just tell your message, grab it, let them get out of the way and into the department. But that's the biggest. I'd say the other piece that with this format that we've tried to stay true to is just keeping that. I think it's true to the industry that flexibility in what we call the buy area, right? The middle, the heart of the department. That's unique to this format, is putting produce in the heart of the store, right? And in the heart of that department is where it's all happening. So it'd be, that's kind of where everything is pulsing out from there. So that's where I would want the customer to go next, is like, if we care about something, we better be doing something here, because that is really driving the seasonality and the theme, and that overarching story has to start there. And sometimes I can only tell a little bit of it in the entryway because I know my limitations there. But outdoors is great. It's harder and harder to do these days. I love the curb appeal. You can have all sorts of stuff going on, but for those other retailers out there with regulations and safety and everything else, it's just getting tougher and tougher to have the kind of flex. Plus weather, global warming's not helping with burning everything out on the outside. You only get like 2 months where it's like under 80 degrees.
For sure. But you know, you touched on it a little bit. You got, really your work is about creating that experience, right? Creating that impulse buy. The produce section is an impulse buy section, right? If you walk in and see a really killer whatever, it's like, oh, I can work with that. Oh, I want to get that. Or I see something on the wet rack that I wasn't thinking about in my meal planning for next week. It was like, oh, I'm going to put that into it. You have that opportunity because of really the way you merchandise, the way you lay out, and exactly to the point that you made about those touch points that are invigorating the consumer. And even though you come into the store and you're bumping butts and all this other stuff and people are in your way, you're still putting that impression of like, oh, they've got this over there. And even though maybe I didn't get to those, but I'm going to see them again when I get over there, whatever the case may be. And you're working that impulse to them, which I think is great.
Yeah. And I think if you, I'm sorry, I'm just going to add on that. I would say that's part of knowing your customer too, and building that language and trust, right? If they trust you and they know that they can depend on you, then you can start using that in your merchandising, right? So you can start putting dragon fruit at the entryway, even if they haven't had it, if they never tasted it, even if it's $4 to $6 a unit. They trust that you wouldn't put it here if it wasn't cool, if it wasn't important, if I shouldn't try it. Right. You can start using and building momentum off of that rather than, if you don't take a strategic approach to that, you eventually blur those lines.
Yeah, for sure. That makes total sense. Let's shift gears a little bit. And because this is part of your responsibility as well, how much has the buy side influenced the merchandising side? And kind of how are they connected?
Well, they have to be. I mean, we know they have to be connected at the hip.
Sure.
Right. I guess the two ways I would think about it. One would be the buy side is fundamentally here to provide the toolbox for us to bring this story to life at store. Right. So that's got to start with the customer. It starts with what do they need and expect. So why are they there? And then what is the kind of strategic sales plan that we have, right? In understanding that, and what are the kind of, the sales and margin, all those other things that have to happen to make this viable. It starts there and goes up. So I from our buy side, they have to be connected. They have to know what that is, and everything they're doing on that side has to be driving towards delivering a best-in-class experience for the customer there. The other part, this is the part that, this format and getting the opportunity to be a part of it was invigorating, is you're also, the second side is you're dedicated to the upstream needs, right? So that buyer is working really closely with growers and other, vendor partners on what their needs are. And they've got needs too, and to keep them viable and keep this relationship and this engine running. And so you've got to be responsible to that. And you have, I think our job as merchants is peddlers. We got to sell this stuff, right? And if they need help or they've got an opportunity and it greases whatever wheels necessary, theirs or ours, we have a responsibility from a downstream. So I have to be responsible to that need. And if I get disconnected on either one, I try and do things for the grower or the vendor that don't make sense for the store or the customer, or vice versa. I'm trying to do something I just can't deliver well against because I haven't built the upstream infrastructure to do that. And I'm going counter and trying to do things that I just haven't earned. You'll break.
Love it. I love that. I mean, that's brutally honest. And I would agree with 110%. Right. I mean, because it's a process. You are right. They are connected to the hip, and that even though it may be a great opportunity, it may not be a great opportunity on the up or the downside of the model. Yeah,
right.
For sure. So with that being said, and just kind of expanding on it a little bit, tell me a little bit about the ad process. When you take and all of a sudden you look at something and, how's the ad process influence the merchandising? And I ask this question because I think this is something that, I know over my career of experience, you guys deal with it all the time, but let's say, we'll pick a commodity. Let's say strawberries. You got a massive strawberry ad, right? It's in the paper. It's on the website. It's, buy one, get 100 free, whatever the hell the ad is. And Mother Nature goes, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you have an ad, but we're going to rain now for 4 days and your ad means nothing. What do you guys do, right? So it's a two-part question. Give me a little bit about the ad process, how it influences, but I want to come back to because I think people look like, oh, sorry, I don't have it. It's raining. It's like, okay, but and once they hang up the phone, it's like, got that over with, but your life is jacked, right? So you have all these things that are happening now. So I want to touch on both of them. I know I threw both questions at the same time, but I wanted to set that one up to kind of know that I wanted to get to that one too.
Yeah, and speaking of jacked, it's usually the produce, the store team that's jacked, right? I just have to do. I've got some explaining to do. They're the ones that have to deal with this, for 14 hours during the day of constant questions and complaints. So I, credit them for dealing with that when something gets in the way. I'd say the ad process, Todd, is kind of like we were saying earlier around building that story. And I think you may have mentioned the puzzle of how to put this together, right? And I guess you've got to figure, are we doing, because sometimes it depends. Am I starting with my sales strategy? Am I doing that, what we were saying, as far as this is my plan with the customer? I have an idea of sales plan of the products, the season of what am I going after? What are the things, what are the opportunistic deals I've got? What am I trying to introduce and maybe be a little bit disruptive in my assortment, or create a really strong point of difference that's driving loyalty and just engagement, right? And interest, all those kinds of things. You've got a sales plan, and I think an ad should amplify that, right? It should be the way that I'm sharing that with a customer in a way that could be, is it about price? Is it about these things I want to tell you stories? Is about sharing what we must care about it because you put it in your ad. Is it that or the other way, right? And I think this format can bounce. It can be really driven on, I've got to take care of some upstream needs, and here's the way that I can make that work. And then you've got the other direction. And we especially in the last couple of years, we've been navigating those waters and trying to find that real sweet, that nice balance between the two, because I think it can get out of balance if you get too far on either side. But I do think it's like, in either one tends to be, at least for me, putting an ad together is like building a puzzle where you're start with the corners and the edges and start working your way in, because there's some obvious stuff, and there's other stuff where you're just trying to fill in the gaps. If it's finding the categories that need a boost, if it's making sure that I'm well-rounded for a customer on their shopping list, right? That if you're coming in for certain categories that I don't care as much about, but I want to make sure we're here for you.
Absolutely.
And when you got to, I don't know, when weather gets in the way or supply gets, whatever, your strawberry example, I would say that, I don't know, you're an old produce guy. I think there's a reason that, I started with this, what felt like would be a part-time job, till I figured out what I was going to do when I grew up. But
have you figured it out yet? Have you figured that out yet?
I'm sure, like most of us, no. I keep thinking just another year, I got this. I'll figure it. Just hang in there. But it's the problem solving, and it's the feeling like the puzzle is that picture that you're making constantly changes, but you always feel like, I can do this. I can put in other pieces. I'll rearrange this. If my strawberries are out, how are we doing on blueberries, right? How are we doing on this? What can because that's a nice thing about this from a customer perspective on a lot of areas, is if I'm good enough and smart enough and creative enough, I can get out of this. And I can help growers. We can help our partners, and we can even help customers and turn a deficit into a win. But that's the part where, you got to be humming to be able to do that well. And we hit the mark sometimes, and sometimes we just fall down on our face and apologize. From Sprouts, we offer occasionally when we can't figure that out. And even sometimes we do. I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about this format is offering rain checks. Sure. So if a customer comes in and they can't find something, hey, the next time you're here, when we have it, it's yours. The other thing is, if you have it and you come in and you take it home and you don't like it, or it's not good enough, come back, get another one, get your money back, stand by what we are. And I think again, back to, if a customer knows that's who you are fundamentally, and you're there to serve, and you're there to partner with them, they'll forgive you when you blow it a few times. Not a couple times.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it goes back to being transparent, right? And I mean, that's part of the role too of the buy side and the merchandising side, right? I mean, you are being transparent. You're trying to get out there and provide this service, provide this runway, this easel of picture that's out there, and stuff's going to happen, right? We're not dealing, it's not manufactured widgets. It's Mother Nature does what Mother Nature does, no matter how much we think we can screw around with her. She's ultimately going to win every time. So it does, truthfully, it does become a serious challenge. So building off that a little bit, you there's so many items out there right now. I mean, I imagine you could probably have 800 items inside of your store if you so choose to have 800 items, right? I mean, there's just so many choices out there in the sector. I mean, it really is. It's somewhat, in a lot of ways, it can be overwhelming. So with that kind of mindset, and again, being a little facetious about 800, but you got all these new items coming, or different things are always being, new varieties, all this other stuff, week to week. How do you rationalize that? How do you sit there and go, well, I've got this red, grape, and now there's another red grape, but what's different about, well, this one tastes like this, but they look at, all these other things. How do you rationalize that? Because to your point earlier, you can overcomplicate this really quickly.
Yeah. And you feel like you're exaggerating maybe with your 800 comments.
I did. I took it back.
I don't think you're that far off. I would say, we're pretty close to moving to, that direction. And I know there's a lot of good retailers out there that have eclipsed that. So it's moved to that direction. And it's, to your point, it's going that direction. Some of it's good and healthy for the industry, and some of it's probably doing what we were talking about earlier, as far as cluttering the point of what you're doing, and you're confusing folks, and you're probably turning them away from things that they would have otherwise adapted to or adopted. So the way the way I think goes back, Todd, to understanding what you care about from a retailer. Who are you? What is your place in this? And what are the categories that you feel are the areas where you want to be a point of difference? And you to not only in the competitive environment, people have choices, but you got, again, knowing your customer and what you think they care about, or maybe what you think they should care about. And I can help them with that. I can introduce them and educate them and build that excitement around a category or an item. I think that we start there. And that's where I think if you're unclear in that, if you're not crystal clear on that, that's where the more is better concept gets in your way. And today, especially, you can really quickly do that. So the way we scripted it out by category of what we believe, what's important to us today, what's going to be important to us or the consumer tomorrow. And what do we need to just do good enough on? And I think so. Some of those are really hard because the good enough ones feel like you're leaving so much on the table, but you have to. The good news with Sprouts is we got lots of real estate. We got a lot of room to play with. So those choices become a little less. Where I know other folks out there that got a really tight shop. You got to be really good at this and make those hard decisions. So that's one. I think you got to know. From an assortment standpoint, you got to know how to measure performance, what works and what doesn't. And sometimes you got to be, balanced in that performance reporting, because we've got today with all the technology and ability to be able to see all trends and turns and SKU productivity. We look at that all the time. And you got to understand. So, and we've got teams of analysts that are behind the scenes with lots of advice on what you're doing. Usually, it's what you're doing wrong. They like to start there, but
right, of course,
it's always more fun. So they'll tell you all those things, right? But you got to evaluate that against what you know in your, and that this is where experience and gut instincts,
a little gut instinct,
and being relevant to the industry, right? Knowing the where it's headed, what's cutting edge, all those kind of things. You have to know those things. So that what we do, I think, is balancing the categories and the areas where you feel the most that are most important to the business. Take risks, lean in, make mistakes, test and learn, and be aggressive in that test and learn mentality and the tactics behind that. And then the rest would be start leveraging some other those analysts and everyone else that can actually use data to help you make better and smarter decisions with what you're doing and what's working. Because sometimes what used to work 10 years ago, right, or 15 years, 20 years ago when I was a produce manager, and I feel like, oh, I know this works. Today it doesn't. Maybe
right.
I need to use some data and analytics to do that, because that's a problem. Today sometimes is maybe 10 years ago. I could call a few stores. I could talk to a produce manager. I could have a couple meetings, get on a conference call, and I could get an earful of feedback on what they think is working, what they're hearing from the customers, what they're doing to help us make good decisions. it's harder to do today. I mean, you probably, you start doing conference calls and everybody's zoning out doing emails or something else, and the engagement's pretty minimal sometimes, a lot of times. And then the produce manager, you call them and they just finished a temporary job at Target or whatever, and they've come over and they've never stocked produce before, and they just can't give you the kind of information you need yet.
Right. Well, it's like, thinking about what you just said, it's like, America woke up on a Wednesday and figured out how to spell kale. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's hot now. It's like, what is kale? Kale's hot. Like, and all of a sudden the whole world changed and it's like, there was no kale, but it's now, become a superfood. Right. And watch that. So that pivoting has got to be a part of it.
This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Moxie Marketing, an award-winning, full-service marketing agency specializing in all aspects of the fresh food and produce industry. Let's all get Moxie. Connect with us at getmoxie.com. That's GETMOXXY.com.
What do you think is one thing, in that you've learned in your role that's the biggest surprise to you? And maybe look at it, frame it up, maybe like, what today, maybe think of even about what COVID's done, in that whole pandemic cycle that you had to live through, but maybe it's more back to like, when you started 15 years ago, what's a surprise out there?
Well, I guess what comes to mind for me personally,
besides hanging out with me on a Zoom call.
I'm surprised that I'd ever still be doing this.
I'm surprised you said yes, to be truthful.
I know you got nothing to leverage anymore. I can't get a deal on anything. This is freebie stuff. So personally, what came to my mind when you asked is I always assumed, because like a lot of us in this produce industry, I mean, there's a lot that grew up in agriculture and have been determined since they were probably predetermined before they were born, but been determined since they were young. This is where they were headed. There's probably a lot of us like me, at least I know a lot, that get into this almost by accident and just get hooked. And
that was me.
And don't and stay. This was never how you scripted things. I always felt, so every level I kept thinking, like I mentioned, the problem solving piece. So like there's the puzzle, like I can get this. If I could just get to that level, I could fix this. I got this, right? I could fix these things that seem to be just in your way. If you're a produce manager and you can't, I don't know if it's out of stocks, and every single time you go on ad, it seems like they keep shorting you. Like if I could just get to the person that's directing the buying, I will fix this. I'm not going to run out of stock anymore. This is so annoying that I have to deal with this, handle every customer complaint personally because this person can't do their job. If I could just get up here, and then every time I was taking a step up, nope, thought I could fix some of those basic things, and they're so hard. And then you get like all these other things added to that you also didn't realize were broken. And I think that's one of the things that surprised me is how hard it is sometimes to fix some very simple things, that it doesn't have to do with elevating a position or a career or some version of what you think is going to be some power or position. It always comes down to, frequently comes down to the individual. Can, empower yourself, take care of, be an advocate, fix it. That tends to be, rather than thinking, oh, I know how to solve this, I just need to get, influence above. It usually doesn't work for me. The other thing that doesn't work in produce that I haven't found out is that I always figured too, the work-life balance, in this retail and produce industry just always seemed like, oh, I'll get here and we get to go start playing golf with you, start hanging out, like, we'll travel and go see the pineapple fields in, Costa Rica, or go to Hawaii to check out the ginger, turmeric, whatever we could. Nope. It just gets crunched and crunched and crunched. So I think that's common. It's just one of those things. For some reason, I just keep trying to tell myself that, that's going to be the light at the end of the tunnel. And for some reason, I keep getting surprised when it isn't. But maybe that's an IQ issue.
No, look, life. I talk about life balance with my clients all the time. Life balance is a very important thing, and I recognize it and realize it. As I've gotten older and have done what I've done throughout my career. I mean, I've could look on my Marriott account and see the 1,802 nights that sit there on that account, right? I get it. Right. I get it. And I've learned now, because of being a little bit more mature about that process, how important that is. And I drive that message home all the time, because you're not going to get that time back. You're not going to be able to find that airspace any longer. You're going to go back, and you don't want to have any kind of regrets, but you've got to be able to, if you want to be effective, you've got to have balance throughout the entire process. Yes, I understand how businesses are busy and they're growing and all these other things. I get that. But you get to be a point, especially in the leadership role, that as much as you think you're being effective, you're being ineffective because you're out of balance. Right? You may be going 100 miles an hour doing everything you need to do during the daylight hours. Then you come home and it's, that's chaos, which directly will affect you the next day or whatever the case may be. So that life balance is really important. I mean, I think that's a lesson that a lot of people, a lot of CEOs, a lot of young executives need to stop and ponder and recognize that life balance is a good thing. And it's okay to take advantage of that. It's okay to catch your breath. It makes you better, right? Yeah. It really does make you better.
And surprise, who's the one that typically owns making that happen? Like problem solving of in stocks or whatever. It's you, right? You get, it's the individual. I've got to figure that out, right? And I own that.
100%.
Yeah. This industry is just there's some really addictive things with it, right? In retail and produce, that it's so hard to do that sometimes. It just because it does feel good.
It does, but and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the stuff we're talking about today, because one of the cool things about this platform and the people that are coming on and sharing some of these stories is that you've got a track record, you've got something, there's somebody out there that's listening to you that's going to be like, oh yeah, I love that, that's great. You know what, I am going to apply that or think about that. Giving back, and you talked about it very early on in the broadcast about the word mentorship, right? And mentoring, it's a really important part in life balancing and these things, and grasping some of these concepts that you're sharing and stuff. These moments of pause, these moments to think things through, being simple, are really important. So I appreciate that perspective that you threw out there. I mean, I think it's really important that people recognize that it needs to be talked about. It's okay, right? Life balance is a good thing. You touched on something earlier, that interests me, and that's agriculture technology. And I'm a big believer in that. We've got to, technology, to me, when I think about ag technology, it's not an and or conversation. It's an and conversation, and it's important. It's a big part of that. So, I know that you guys adapt all the time. You're a big boat out there in the ocean, and you guys adapt all the time to emerging technologies and stuff. And technology in the produce space is taking on from, CA places, all these different, different startups that are out there and stuff like that. How do you look at that? I mean, obviously you're watching those markets and where they are, and could you share a little bit about ag technology and what you're seeing, maybe even from a merchandising standpoint?
Yeah, but I probably can more share it from a merchandising and retail perspective, since that's most of my attention for the last number of years. This, my working for smaller companies, the farmers market formats has always stayed true to, very traditional kind of more of an old school approach. That and that old school approach, used to be just a paper and a pencil for selecting orders, right? You'd write a pick ticket on a piece of paper and hand it to somebody, and good luck. We moved. The good thing is we moved to Excel. So that was a huge deal, but we've outgrown that. So the technology that is critical today that we have to continue to leverage is really inventory management and demand planning and forecasting. That's the part is you get so big and so much, right? You mentioned the 800 items, and if we've got 400, 1,200 stores, multiple distribution centers and vendors and relationships with DSD suppliers and local growers and farmers and all this stuff, you have to have a way to make sure you hit the mark on staying in stock and supporting this retail teams that are less skilled, less experienced, in some ways less interested than they were 10 years ago. And we've got to support that. The customers depend on it, right? The business and the shareholders depend on it. So taking advantage of, managing, implementing demand planning systems at DCs, perpetual inventory at store level. We're taking some pretty big leaps there and lots of learnings. And this concept is about as hard. Well, produce is hard to do it anyway, right? Because you've got how many different, every cantaloupe, whether it's a 9 count, 12 count, 15 count, whatever you're going to do, even 18 counts in the old days, selling that through all goes through as one PLU, but you got multiple SKUs and items that you need to communicate, not only manage at a warehouse, but communicate with growers and farmers around all these different support parts of the business. And you've got to take that information, somehow connect that one to many, and then the many to one, and do all of those things. So we're working through that, but that is going to be, I think, critical to our ability to get the fundamentals so we can spend more time on the storytelling. Because if you can easily have to get distracted on those things when they're not working well, right? You mentioned the in-stocks on strawberries or whatever example, but if you're not managing your inventory positions in your warehouses and your stores and supporting that so that you've got good quality and good turns and good in stock. So that whole fundamental language that the customer is depending on you, right, for all of these things. If you don't deliver against that consistently and earnestly, then you better get back to the basics. And it never allows you to take it to the next level and start really doing things that are right for the customer, right for the business, right for your vendor and grower partners. So for us, that's leveraging that. I would say PI and AI and all those other acronyms that become annoying is what we're leaning into.
Acronym Scrabble, baby. Acronym Scrabble.
Sure.
So give me what's exciting you out there today in the space? I mean, what's getting you fired up? Is there something out there that you're seeing happening or trends that are happening that you think are pretty cool?
Kind of on the comment around, taking it to the next level. So you get away from the basics. If you can get out of that and get your head above water, what's cool today, from what I see, at least my vantage point, is the kind of commoditization of the industry. We went, and I kind of, I think was starting when it was all kind of just budding around kind of this move towards, engineering all of our growing practices and our seed production, everything around shelf life and sales, right, and productivity for that from a sales perspective. Combine that with just a move in the industry to better compete and earn customer business if it's against e-commerce or whatever, around a real commoditization of item and price. So it mattered not where that product came from, how it ate, what was unique about it, what season. I don't care if I'm buying a strawberry in December or June, I want it at this price and it's just a strawberry. I'm seeing that shift. I know we're part of this shift, and I'm would love to be dedicated that in a bigger way than I can find time to do that today. But I'm seeing that happen, right? Where we're able to explore that. If we want to do a plum cot promotion, and you can now get a plumsicle and a plapple and a pomegranate and whatever, and the varieties that you're able to access and actually get it rather than all being behind the scenes.
Right.
Because there was, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, everything turned into red plum or black plum. And there was no conversation around what variety and how does it eat. It was like, well, no, it's a black plum and it's 99 cents a pound. So I see the industry moving that direction. I love to be at the forefront of that. And I think the customer, that's the kind of stuff, it's going to be hard to do that on the internet. And if you're buying, groceries delivered to your front door, to have that kind of understanding and connection to no, you got to understand, let me tell you how this happens. It's not GMO and it's a hybridization of this and all these very cool things. And it lasts for 2 weeks and it's only right here. And why is this different and better or unique compared to these 5 things next to it? I think they're ready for that conversation. I think they want to have it. We just got to get the people in the stores to know what the heck that is. Know what GMO acronym stands for and why this isn't that and all those things. It's a lot of lifting, but I see us move in that direction, as an industry, right? I'm Sprouts is being held to the fire from some really good competitors out there doing a fantastic job at this as well. So that's what excites me is I love that conversation because that's ultimately kind of, I think, what kept me in this for a long time. If it's about the, Mother Nature, you mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that's what it should be what it's all about in a lot of ways.
Well, you summed up kind of almost where we started, right? I mean, you're like the artist with the easel, right? And you're looking at this as a new experience, a new opportunity, a new way to connect with people, a new way to talk to people, right? I mean, you're talking to your customers through your product mix, right? And
Yeah.
If you only have, to your point, if you only have a red plum out there, it's a pretty one-sided conversation. But I think it's great. I mean, I agree with you. I think we're going to have to keep people engaged and excited if we want to change the food narrative, right? And I believe that these varieties that are good for 2 weeks and taste fantastic and have all this experience, it goes back to my soapbox of they're positive costs of food, because we're working to increase consumption through other means, but driving them into something positive like these different varieties. And I think it's great. Dude, I love that idea. I think it's fantastic. I commend you for, it's a big undertaking. It's a big undertaking to talk to so many people at so many stores about something that's truly is very finite in its existence, but is certainly worth elevating the game just around that simple red plum.
Yeah. And I would say it's also goes counter to what your previous, conversation or question was around technology and the innovation there, right? And expansion and growth, and putting all these things, if you could put them on cruise control so they don't fall down. It's so hard to pull that off when you're with all these moving parts in and out, the growers figuring out how do you get, well, I only have 800 of those and I need 2,000. So where do those 800 go? And I've got to tell a story on only part of this division can only get this. And how do you bifurcate all these different sales plans without just teams and teams of people, which, businesses are not moving that direction. And artificial intelligence at this point isn't going to get us there. It's going to be people that are getting this work done. And companies have to respect that and empower it, right? We got to give people time and resources and be dedicated to pulling this off, because it is a lot of elbow grease that goes into making this happen.
No doubt. One of the things I appreciate about you is that you're very open, you're very honest, you're very straight up about stuff. There's some tough questions we threw out at you. And I know that, you've been around a long time in this space, and you worked your way up. And so your perspective, I just appreciate it very, very much. And one of the things that I like to ask people, when we do these is what inspires you a little bit? What gets you fired up? Because, we have to be fed, fed, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everybody has to have a little bit of energy put back into the battery. So what inspires you?
What comes to mind that, keeps my battery charged is my family. I mean, I guess it's not just like if I say it's like produce, then if they watch this, it could be, oh, really? Oh, congrats. Thanks. We actually, and then they'll be like, well, actually work is more important to you. We know you. But it's similar in like, it feels like putting a puzzle together because you're working every day trying to figure out all these maneuvers and this balance and counterbalance stuff. So I get a lot but the reward is instantaneous and super gratifying. So I get a lot of inspiration, honestly, from my wife and my 2 kids. They keep me going, and they've kept me going for a long time.
I think that's a great answer. Tell me something. I know you've got some hobbies. I know you like to go out and play a little stick and have some fun, but tell me about your newest hobby you're messing with now. You're making birdhouses. What are you doing?
Well, it's the stick thing, because I'm now at the age where I'm starting to get these injuries that you get them and you don't know what happened, and you're trying to think back, like, I can't move my arm, and be like, how did I do that? Was it making dinner? Was it when I picked up my backpack? Like, how? And it feels like you must have crashed doing downhill motocross. Like, no, I think I was lifting my backpack wrong. So the stick part has gotten on the shelved for a bit here. But so I've gotten into, and I'm in Arizona. So I typically, especially this time of year, if it's summer, I need to hide indoors. I gotten a little bit into woodworking.
Nice.
Because I find it nice. Some of us in this industry, again, trying to problem solve, probably slightly perfectionistic, trying to, always make things right. So that it's good for that, because you can take that to levels that you'll never be happy. So I've enjoyed that part of it. I also enjoyed the natural part of it, which is, again, I think probably if I could relate it back to produce, is cool, because you're dealing with things that Mother Nature created. And it's not simply what you see is what you get. You got to know all the different the
Puzzle
levels.
pieces.
You got to know what kind of wood, where it came from, all this kind of stuff. Like it is, you can go deep. That's cool.
So for me, like woodworking would be like nailing like two pieces of wood together and calling it art. I mean, what are you doing? Are you in there? Are you make, what do you make? I mean, you making gourmet birdhouses? Do you have a shop like on Etsy or something? Or do you actually have, what are you doing?
No. So this is the backup plan, right? So we're just starting here. I'm finally getting to the point where I've got a garage. So I'm starting to build a little bit
So you're getting into it.
I'm kind of getting into it. I just built a dining room. I remodeled the kitchen myself. I didn't, but I bought the cabinets, but I put everything in it. But I did make the dining room table from scratch. So
it wasn't like five pallets. It's not like 5 pallets you took from one of the stores stacked up. Right? We're not that. We're a little better than that. I'm just asking.
I didn't do that. Okay. I didn't go to the store and grab some fixture after a reset and cart it back to the house.
You're scratching off IKEA, putting your name on it. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no. That was the old days, right? All of my CD holders and everything was all these fixtures after resets, all these crates and baskets. My house was littered with this paraphernalia that I probably should have gotten, ticketed for stealing from the company. Although I don't think anyone wanted it because it had a bunch of mold stuck to it. But yeah, no, I think it's decent. I got a long way to go. There's people that do this for real. But if I was going to pick something, that's, I
think it's cool, dude. Well, you know what I think about it? It truly, it's like you said, it's like putting the puzzle together, right? I think it's great. I'm sure. I think it's cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate I put you on the spot a little bit with that one, and I appreciate you leaning into it and sharing with us. All right, let's have a little fun. Let's do a little lightning round questions. Have a little TLC trivia. You ready?
Oh, no. Okay.
No, dude, you're playing for cash and prizes. So think about the end of this. You're going to get something at the end. No, you're not. All right, what's your favorite meal?
Pizza.
Good answer. What kind of pizza?
I like a mushroom. Kind? No. I like a mushroom, sausage, and green chili, and like a preferred like a hatch green chili. But I'll take poblano or pasilla, whatever.
Very nice. What's the best place you've ever visited?
Oh, this is the best place I've ever visited. Oh, shoot. I would say what comes to mind first, 2 years ago, went to Glacier National Park.
Cool.
And spent a week up there. Mind blowing. I absolutely loved it. It just felt like it's one of those vacations and spots where you go and all you can think about for the next week is, I think we need to move there. I think I need to get a cabin. I think I need to, it's like I want to turn into Grizzly Adams and get a donkey or something. And yeah, no, sorry, the Grizzly Adams is an age reference. You probably get it, but
I got it. Yeah. I love the
I know you got it. I'm not worried.
He was fantastic. He was fantastic. Flannel shirts all day long, baby. So Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, that's good. How about early Star Wars? Later Star Wars, not interested. I was, I was young in this. I was young in the mid '70s, so I was, they were coming out when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. That was sweet spot. Lately, man, and now I'd say so. If I had to watch something now, I'll go to Star Trek. I'll go watch, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy days.
Shatman, you gotta love the Shatman. It's beautiful.
No, you can't watch enough of those.
No doubt. Who's your favorite superhero then?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess fundamentally, I like Spiderman. He's got a good sense of humor. He's playful, takes care of business still.
Yeah, I can go Spidey. Spidey's not a bad choice.
Yeah, he's not creepy. Like Batman has. There's too many of those.
Too many different Batmans. Yeah, they're just. They're like dark alley Batman. It's kind of freaks me out. Like
it's not even PC to like him. I'm not sure. So someone's not going to like me if I.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day and hanging out with me a little bit and sharing as you did so openly and candidly. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people, which is something that you've done for me, for a long time. You're just a great guy to be around, and you got positive energy and you wear your heart on your sleeve. And I commend that. And you use words like mentor and purpose and multiple times in our conversation today. And I think that speaks volumes about you. And I got just one final question I just want to throw at you really quick.
Okay.
If you can give somebody some advice, a young person out there, again, back to the theme of kind of mentoring a little bit, if you can give a young person some advice that's starting out, in the grocery business, the produce business, or whatever it would be, retail food business, what would that advice be?
That's a good one.
I try not to have crappy questions.
No, I mean, you finally did a good job.
Thank you. Bless you, brother.
So how about be inquisitive? Ask questions. Strive for knowledge. I find that I think it seems a lot of young people today, one, they think they've got all the answers, or at least they want to pretend they do. They think they can find the answers if they don't very quickly. And I think that's just the evolution with technology and smartphones and all that other. But I find that I'm surprised, how few questions folks ask, and how they. To the point of where people come to, if you're showing them some, well, this is how things work, or this is where that comes from, or this is what a plum cut is, and remember, it's not GMO, and I know they don't know what GMO is, and I don't know, but they won't ask, what does GMO stand for? What is the difference between hybridization and grafting, or what?
Right.
No clue, right? And why I don't understand why an avocado tree, I can't plant an avocado seed and it turns into the avocado I just ate, or why is it, why do they call it the banana republic? All these things that are like, this is fundamental to who we are, right? I mean,
right.
I'll have conversations on sweet potatoes and talk about the impact slavery had on just how we call a yam or a sweet potato. It's really interesting stuff.
Right.
And I would say, so if you're in the produce industry, ask some questions, because it's incredible how much information and how big of a part this is to not only the retail industry and how but I'd say society and economics and big stuff. And it's all right there. And all you got to do is ask. And the cool thing is you can find it if you just ask the question. So let's start there.
I love it. I can't, you know what? You gave a hell of a good answer, and you've given a whole lot of other really good answers today. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time again to come on and hang out with us. I know that you've inspired people by this conversation. I'm inspired by the conversation. I'm inspired by what you just said. It's so true. And thank you for sharing from your heart and giving them your time and energy back to the industry and mentoring and inspiring some people out there. So I just want to say thanks again from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you face to face sometime, whenever, and the world allows us to do that. And much love to you and the family. And thanks for hanging out, and an open ticket. Come on back. Come share with us some more. People are going to want to hear from you. I guarantee it.
My real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thanks, everybody, for checking out Todd-versations. We're really appreciative you're here. Folks, give it up for our friend, Andrew McGregor. You all be good with each other. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon. Take care. Well, a huge shout out to Andrew McGregor from Sprouts. The dude's top notch. He's inspiring. He's got a lot to share. He's got a wealth of knowledge. And hopefully inspired you a little bit, gave you some things to think about, made you think maybe about your experience a little differently in the grocery store, and maybe look at your own experience as you walk in the store. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What's that store saying to you? How does it relate? Does it touch you in some level? So a huge shout out to him for taking the time to hang out with us. I hope you all appreciate it. We appreciate you. Don't forget to check us out on all the social media sites, Instagram, TLC_Todd-versations, Facebook. We're all over LinkedIn. Don't forget our YouTube channel. The audio version of this is available all over the world and all kinds of different podcast channels. And we really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. Thank you so much. And remember, go inspire somebody today. It's very important. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Be good.